We're really pleased with how it turned out. Could have done with a bit less stressful events leading up to this point, but we did it. Now we just have to wait for the office itself to arrive and leave your best wishes in the comments that part of the office goes smoother than this base. Oh sweet summer child. So we did that back in September, October. It's now January and life threw some curveballs at us. The first thing was the actual shed and all the wood was about 4 or 5 weeks delayed just because the company that we bought it from wasn't the best, it turns out. So I'm not even going to mention the name of the company. Do not recommend them. But the shed finally arrived and then we were getting our house renovated. So we had to move out of the house and that took up all the time. We didn't have any time to actually build the shed. Then I had a little accident. Playing netball, I dislocated my knee, ended up pulling some bone off and some other gory stuff. So I ended up needing knee surgery and I couldn't walk for a few weeks. I can walk now. It's a little bit sore, especially in the cold, but we finally got a free weekend for me and Joe and both of our dads to come and try and get this office built so that it's finally up and I can start working in it, maybe eventually. It'll need a lot of insulation because it's still freezing cold. It's currently about -3. We're in full layers, so this is probably going to be a lot of time lapses and just little clips of us getting the shed built, but hopefully by the end of this video we will have a fully complete office. Well, not complete, but the office outside will be complete, the shell will be complete, and then in the future I can come back and do the installation and all the inside bit. But for now we're hoping that nothing else goes wrong and this is nice and easy, takes us 2 days and we can be back in the warm. Right, future Ellie? The first sign that this might not have been the smoothest of cabin builds was the fact that all the screws and nails were chucked into one bag, which meant my first job was to try and sort through all of this, while the men started with the base. I couldn't kneel because of my knee surgery, so this was a good task to keep me busy. We put down some damp proofing to try and make sure this cabin stays dry and solid for as long as possible, and then begins the decoding of the frankly non-existent instructions. Seriously, 80% of the time building this office was trying to figure out what the instructions were trying to say, or failed to say for a couple of important steps. So by the time we'd figured out the first step, it was starting to get dark, so this is as far as we got on the first day. Manufacturer's recommendation of 2 days to build was not looking likely. Day 2 we started bright and early. I didn't mention earlier, but when the materials were delivered, much like the screws and nails, they were delivered as just one big pile of wood. So before we even started to build this, we, and by we I mean mostly Joe, spent hours separating the pieces into their matching piles, which we then sorted into our various sheds while we waited to build. But this did mean getting the pieces out and into the right places was a slightly quicker task. We built up the walls and eventually got to the point of adding the window frames, which of course didn't fit right away. So we had to unscrew the frame and build them back together into the office frame itself. But by the end of day 2 we had built up the walls and added all 4 window frames. Day 2 actually ended by us realising the instructions were wrong, and the final layer of planks we were told to add in one picture were not supposed to be there in the next picture. We debated if we could just bodge some other pieces onto the walls, so they were just one higher, but in the end we took off the last layer and made it as we think was intended. After that it was time to add the roof, then the door frame, and finally start to add all the roof boards, going until it got too dark to see anymore. Day 4, and that was the weekend over. So me and my dad ended up having to come back to finish the last bits of trying to get the office at least watertight. So finishing the last row of roof boards. We were about to add on the felt, then realised when the instructions said to nail the felt and fascia boards to the side of the office, there was nothing to actually nail them into. So using some leftover pieces, we added something to nail into. Finally onto the roof. Hammer down the felt, and then add the fascia boards. In the last few hours of daylight, we tried to add the windows, but of course took a little longer than we expected, as they didn't fit within the frames. But we managed to get one wedged in enough to do for now. A few days later, Joe and I came back, fitted the rest of the windows, again not properly fitted, just squashed into the holes for us to come back another time to make them fit nicely, and fitted the doors, which, like everything, was not as simple as it sounded. But we were fed up with it all at this point and just wanted to make it watertight and solid. So yes, we need to cut off the felt and fill in a few holes, but that's as good as it's going to get for now. You might have noticed the floorboards weren't nailed down or finished either, as we'll be putting some extra insulation under the floorboards at some point. But we left that for future jelly to deal with. The office is standing and I think mostly solid. At this point, we are still living out of the house as it's being renovated, so we'll be doing the last bits like insulation, walls, sealing and painting the outside, and then of course decorating the inside. But we'll save that excitement for another day. For now, why not leave a like to make us feel better for how much pain this office has put us through so far, and subscribe so you don't miss us hopefully finally getting this office finished.